This call is being recorded.
Welcome to Ask Gwen, everyone, and the artwork of CP. Because of the content matter of this episode, I would suggest you wouldn't listen to it with kids in the car and normally Ask Gwen is, and normally the artwork of CP is a little bit more family friendly, but because of the subject matter that Danielle and I are going to be talking about today, it's not safe for work episode, not safe for kids episode, and it's actually going to be a heartbreaking episode, and it's actually going to be a tissue box episode. And you guys didn't know what I was facing the day after I turned 32 years old. So here we go. The day after I turned 32 years old, I my two aunts were in town and they had come over to my house. We were interviewing aide at the time who was only going to be here for 2 weeks, while my other aide who was with me was going to be out of town. And so my two aunts said to me, and this is after they spent um so they flew in Thursday, they spent Friday the 21st and the 22nd with me, and the day of the 22nd, and then my stepmom, myself, my stepsister, and my step aunt and uncle went out to dinner for my birthday. And so by the time the 23rd of June hit, um, I thought we were going to interview the aide and that would be it. Well, it turns out that, and some of this podcast will be very graphic because that's the nature of beast. It turns out my thought that it was going, and my headphone just died, you guys. So I'm going to this on speaker. There we go. And so my headphone just died in the middle of this. And so I thought that my aunts were going to be super receptive of my state at the time. Now, Glenn, you got to remember, my dad died May 19th, and this is June 23rd when it happened. So they, and I say they, my stepsister, my mom, went up to get dressed. My aide, who was living with me at the time, was downstairs, and none of them knew this was going on. And so my two aunts say, come on, when we'll help you get dressed. And what landed up happening is I didn't think that would happen ever in my life. I didn't think I would let alone get locked in a room with two individuals. And so I got locked in the room. They start questioning me. And now, as I said, my dad died May 19th. And so this was 1 month after they came and they disguised a birthday dinner as a welfare check. As a welfare check, they disguised most they did it as a welfare check, and because my family has been supporting me financially since my mom died. So they wanted to make sure that they were doing everything was up to their standards. But what happened, I did mind questioning what happened next will ever be seared in my mind. What happened next? They they questioned me. They opened up the door. They roll my office chair in, which and I'm surprised my aide, who was living with me at the time, couldn't hear all of this. And were they started getting me undressed. I did not ask to get, and the funny thing was, I did not ask to get undressed. I did not get asked to put in the shower, to be put in the shower against my will. And I did not ask for any of this. The next thing I know, they lay me back on my bed. And the next thing I know, they are saying to my stepsister, go get a laser. And my stepsister is sitting in the chair I'm sitting in right now as I'm recording this. And my stepsister has no clue what's going on. And the next thing we know, my aunts have now shown my stepsister my pubic hair, which yeah, that was embarrassing. And because apparently to them, I lived like a cave woman. And I was emotionally abused by them. The whole point of this was I was emotionally abused by them. And even though not it's not physical abuse, I was still emotionally abused. And people have said to me that thank God you had witnesses at your own house, because if those two were there and they did what they did, it could have turned into physical abuse. And because I am at this adult with cerebral palsy, they decided to do this to me. Now, I have not had contact with them since. I have not had contact with them since June 23rd. And the only reason why I'm not pressing charges is because I am, they don't live here. They live in international waters. So, and I have asked people this. I have said, well, should I press charges? They go, well, if you press charges, that means you have to see them again and live the whole thing up again. And I said, no, because they think according to the cops, and we have all of us who were present, my stepsister, the aide who was with me at the time, my stepmom, all got interviewed by professional interviewers to see if the story matched up. Because when you go through a case like this, you have to see if all 3 witness accounts match up. And of course, they all match up. So I have not had contact with them, and I don't care if they listen to this. I don't care if they listen to this. I am standing up for the women and men who are sexually and emotionally abused, because as I told the professional interviewer, I have been very lucky to be only emotionally abused and not physically abused. And when in the state of Colorado, I have learned this. And even if it's a family member, and the reason why I let this whole thing go on is because I, um, I thought they were my family. I thought my family wouldn't push the bereaved down further than they did. And so the reason I trusted my family, I trusted my aide, but if my better judgment, and if it happens to me again, um, if it happens to me again, and I have aid here, and I am just going to call 911 from the bathroom, which a lot of victims do. They get into a hiding place. Now I know why they call it a hiding place, because I have never been exposed to this in my life until June 23rd. So they get into a hiding place and call 911 and call a person to come over. So that's what I'm going to do if it happens to me again. And also, if it happens to me again, and in the state of Colorado, you're allowed to say, get out of my house without anyone asking questions. And so if something like this happens to me again, and I never thought that I would come on mic and tell you guys this story, but now that I am ready to tell you guys this story, now it will stay on the podcast feed forever. But I am wanting to tell my story, wanting to stand up for domestic violence, wanting to stand up for those who are emotionally abused, and wanting to stand up for those who are physically abused too, so it doesn't happen again. And I don't care what feedback I get, it will be most likely positive feedback. Though I'll take some negative feedback too and just dust that off, because I want to share my story. I want to be the voice for the victims. I always told you guys that I wouldn't be the voice for the voiceless in journalism. Well, it turns out I'm the voice for the voiceless who are domestically abused, and to those of us who are survivors, um, we should be doing more work than we actually can do. And for those of us who are survivors, we have learned a lesson big time, and we know now what to do, even if it is family. And even I should have trusted my gut that day, and said, no, I'm not going down with you guys. And no, I am just not doing it. But because it was my family, I trusted them. And the next thing I know, I'm being interviewed by a professional interviewer. The aide who was with me at the time got interviewed by the cops, and it was a fun time. And God bless Adult Protective Services, because you guys know, state by state, they have Child Protective Services. And the funny thing is, me being in the education field, the funny thing is, I did not know until I went through this experience what the kids have to go through when the teachers call Child Protective Services, because state by state, um,
teaches mandatory to call Child Protective Services. That's one of the things they teach us in teacher training. And so, unbeknownst to me, there was Adult Protective Services, and I didn't know. And if it wasn't for my counselor, I'm in counseling, you guys, and I go back the 2nd of January to counseling. And so, if it wasn't for my counselor, saying, "Do you feel safe at home?" She was just asking me generally. And I said, "Yes, I do." But something in my heart said, "Well, you need to tell your abuse story to your counselor." And so she's the one that called Adult Protective Services. My aide didn't call Adult Protective Services because we didn't know they existed. So if it wasn't for her, and if it wasn't for her willingness to call Adult Protective Services, I would still be a mess. And now I'm brave and strong for telling my story. But in this case, literally trust your gut, you guys. If I have learned since my abuse, I have learned that, and Danielle knows what's going on, and she sat as the, and if she was here that day, because they want to interview all witnesses. And so if Danielle was here that day, even if Danielle only saw what she saw, they would still want to interview her. But and I would think, so the more we talk about domestic violence and emotional abuse, the better. And that's why I'm doing this episode today with Danielle. And I just want to close 2019 out with the hope that it doesn't happen to you guys. And if you are domestically abused, tell your story. And if you are physically, emotionally abused, tell your story. And if you can't do it, just know that Adult Protective Services is out there, and Child Protective Services is out there. As I said, I didn't know about Adult Protective Services until my case. And so I just want to, and I will always be a confidant for you guys. If you ever want to tell me scary stories about this, I will lead you in the right direction. And there's a national suicide prevention number. And I think, Danielle, you're going to Google it and put it in the show notes just so put the National Suicide Prevention phone number in the show notes. And let's make 2020 the happiest year yet. And let's not have this crazy stuff happen to you guys. And let's leave it with me because it scared me half to death. And yes, they want to interview all witnesses / all parties involved. So when you're ever, if you're ever in that situation, just know that you will have to be interviewed, and just know that it is a tough one. It is a tough one because I remember, and just know that my aide was a witness to this. My stepmom was a witness to this. My stepsister was a witness to this. This happens in own families, and just know that I am here to tell you guys that I'm doing everything in my power to be a content creator and share my story, but at the same time, I have to share scary stuff with you guys because that's the way I roll. And I wasn't prepared to share this story until the end of 2019. And I said to my aide at the time, we were always taught not as kids not to be tattletales. And in a case like this, if you're domestically abused, if you're physically abused, if you're emotionally abused, you're going to have to be the tattletale. And you're going to have to tell people, you're going to have to share your story with the next of kin if you can't share it with adult protective services. And it's going to be the best thing you can do for yourself. And it it the subject of the podcast we've called It is finally out and finally off my chest. And so, and as I said, I have no contact with my mom's family, and I plan not to have contact with them. And that's what they recommend. They, Adult Protective Services in Colorado recommends that you don't have contact with your abuser, whether it's emotional, physical, or mental abuse. They don't they recommend that you don't have contact with your abuser. And yes, the cops did call the Bahamas. Yes, and according to them, thought it was normal. And my other aunt is a little bit more perceptive, but still I don't have contact with her. And yeah, I don't mind the bad feedback. I don't mind the good feedback. I'll take the good feedback as and this story will be on the YouTube because the artwork of CP is on YouTube. It's hooked up to YouTube and it's hooked up to my channel. And so I will, after Danielle posts it, I will get in there and put tags on it. And so this video is going to be not, it's going to be not kid related, but I needed to come out and share my story. And that's going to be it, you guys. That's going to be it. And have a safe and happy 2020. Yikes, as we roll into 2020. And you may not want to be listening to this episode on January 1st, although if you do, just be mindful that this is my story and I'm a proud woman that stands in her own justice and shares the story, and then we'll see what happens. And so we love you guys and happy 2020, and thank you for listening to a diary, the artwork of CP, aka a diary of a fashionista. And if I don't screw up in 2020 on this podcast, that will be a miracle. And so I am really happy that I shared my story. And yes, I am still going to counseling. And yes, I'm still working on my issues. But now that one of my issues is off my heart, I am happy and camper. And so, Danielle, do you want to lead everyone out and call this episode the last episode of 2019? Which
Yes,
scares me.
do. Yeah, yeah, bro, bro. Yeah.
Thank you. Thanks to you guys. Thank you for following us. And let's rock and roll in 2020. And as my dad would say, rock on, rock on. Here's to 2020, and let's make it the most positive 2020 yet, you guys. Thanks, you guys. Bye.
Bye.